I'm Bambi Francisco and I'm speaking with Eric Ries. He's the author of the blog Startup Lessons Learned. And he's a big proponent of staying lean when building your company. Eric, thank you for joining me. And this time you're going to talk about your mistakes.
Oh,
you're
there's so many to choose from. Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, I actually think as an industry, we have to get a lot more comfortable talking about failure because failure is a prerequisite to learning. And since we are basically in the learning industry, we ought to be a lot more comfortable talking about failure and not engaging in so much of what I call success theater, right? Which is all the work we do to make people think I'm a success.
Right.
So, I mean, people often ask me, why should I believe what you're saying is true? Right? I mean,
you have the scars.
Right. Well, the usual thing is, listen, I did it this way. I'm successful. I got rich. You should listen to me.
Yeah.
And like, when someone says that to you, I hope everyone's learning to be really skeptical about it. How do I know you're actually rich? How do I know that the things you did caused you to get rich? How do I know that things that worked for you in the past will work for me in the future? You know, I can share very candidly the things I did wrong, but how do you know that story is true? How do you know that I drew the right lessons from it? It's really important that people get more comfortable talking about failure as a thing that happens to all of us, and then being selective about saying, well, I'm going to try that piece of advice in a small way and see if it gives me the result that it predicts. That's why I spend so much time talking about theory. Is the reason we have to get theoretical is theory helps you predict what the expected outcome of your behavior is, so that then if you don't get the expected outcome, it'll fail. For example.
We're going to talk about failure now.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, no, I
do
it totally. One of my previous companies, we subscribed to this thing I call the IQ theory of entrepreneurship, which is just if you get the smartest, wicked smart people together in a room, what could possibly go wrong? But actually, the fact that we were all super geniuses didn't increase the likelihood of being successful. We made a plan that seemed really good on paper, but we were blinded by the fact that we thought we could predict the future. Okay, oops. I was trained as a technologist. The first startup I did, I actually felt like all I had to do was build a great product, great piece of technology, and all that business stuff somebody else can figure out. Right? And like people, whenever I tell a story like that, I can see people that are cringing because they're like, oh yeah. We've all been there, right? We've all thought, build it and they will come, great product, you know, is good enough. It's really easy from the outside to give advice and tell people what not to do, what to do. But of course, it's much harder when you're in the thick of it. Things are a lot more chaotic and confusing. So it's not always clear what the right thing to do is. That can be paralyzing, especially if we're really worried, oh, my investors are going to find out I don't know, I don't have all the answers. Oh, my friends are going to think I'm a failure. So people get afraid.
Tell us about a time you were afraid and you were paralyzed, if that ever happened.
Oh God, it
because
happens
I'm sure
to me all the time.
You'll have a lot of entrepreneurs. I've been through that.
Totally. The most paralyzed I think I ever was right before we launched the first version of IMVU. It really was buggy. I mean, I gotta make sure that everyone who's listening understands. I mean, this thing crashed. It was ugly. It had just defects everywhere. And people were telling me that my reputation was at stake. I'm the CTO. I'm supposed to know the difference between quality software and low quality software. And I had this fundamental belief that shipping sooner, releasing earlier, we could get better feedback and it was the right thing to do. I really believed it. But okay, believing it in the abstract is one thing. Actually making people pay for a bad product is extremely difficult for someone from a product development point of view. I was losing sleep over it, heartburn. And as it turned out, nobody used the product, so it didn't matter. Oops, right? But hold on. The thing that I was worried about wasn't the thing that came to pass. So I got over it, and we just kind of forced ourselves to do it. That's kind of, there's two, fear prevention strategies, right? One is fear early, fear often, which means just get over it by doing the thing you're afraid of, on a regular basis, and it starts to seem less scary. But the other thing that we did that's really important is kind of a contradictory thing, which is to try to reduce the consequences of the thing you're afraid of. So like we were really afraid, I remember this really clearly, that somebody was going to write an article. Idiots at IMVU don't know what quality software is, right? We're just like, oh, the whole world's going to find out that we're bad at writing software.
Right.
And of course, since we didn't put out a press release, we just put this thing up on the internet. We weren't in stealth mode. We're still letting customers download it. If a journalist wanted to download it, they were welcome to. But because we weren't out there pounding our chest doing the usual Silicon Valley thing, we were embarrassed, but not that many people found out about it. And I hear, like, when people are worried about shipping a half-done product, the biggest fear is that people are going to, like, try it, not like it, and then tell all their friends about it. But actually, there's only two cases. Either a lot of people are going to use it because in some ways it's good, or no one's going to use it because it's bad. There's no case where people like don't like it, but still spread it around their friends, because the opposite of word of mouth is not bad word of mouth, it's indifference. Most products, nobody cares.
Right,
well, if nobody cares, no one will discover that it was bad, no one will tell their friends, it's okay.
Right.
But it's really difficult. I still find it hard.
What else do you find hard? I mean, you are giving advice. I have done about 300 interviews of lessons learned, and I still feel I have to kind of fall on my face and learn a lot of these things on my own. So I can imagine that there's some great advice, and I'm just taking it all in right now. But there's some times where you say, like, I keep telling people this is the way it should be, and yet I keep doing the same thing. Or some, where it's hard, like you don't have to name all of them.
No. Listen, I'm happy to put all my baggage out on the table. It's not. I'm trying to be really transparent about what I'm going through, because I think other people are going through it too.
Yeah, because you have a startup now, so you're applying a lot of the principles.
I hate listening to customers. Okay, I preach the importance of getting data about all the time, and it drives me crazy, because I want people to like my work. It's really important to me. And part of being a public figure and writing about what I think is that I get comments. And sometimes there are comments on my blog, but I get pretty nasty comments on places like Hacker News, and people sometimes needle me right at the things that I feel vulnerable about.
You have to walk away from the computer and count to 10.
It's really, I mean, my impulse is to, just like I was at IMView, get in there and argue with every person. Respond to the comment and be like, listen, you don't understand. That's a hurtful thing to say, and it's not correct. And it's like, wait, hold on. Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
If someone finds what I'm doing now makes them uncomfortable, they're going to lash out. That's how humans are.
Yep.
But that means I'm doing something that's having an impact. It might not be the impact I want, but okay, I've touched on a nerve. That's really useful information for me to decide what to do with. And that's one of the principles that is the hardest for me to internalize, which is when someone gives you feedback, it doesn't tell you anything about you or your product. It tells you about them.
Of all these things, the three top things, if you only had time to just share three.
Yeah.
3 principles, 3 pieces of advice to a new entrepreneur, and that's tough. But the 3 things that maybe you put on your refrigerator, something you walk out the door and remind yourself of. What is it?
The number one thing is, how do you measure progress?
Okay.
Under situations of uncertainty, that is, in entrepreneurship, learning is progress, nothing else.
Okay.
So
2.
everything that happens is learning. That's the first thing. Second thing is the speed at which you make decisions is more important than the decisions are right. And the third one is, whenever you have a choice, work in a smaller batch size rather than a larger batch size. Yes, 3 important ones, so you got 3 very theoretical ones.
No,
but they're very important, because the smaller the batch size of your work, that is, the faster you put things out there, the faster you get feedback, and the closer to the thing itself the feedback is, so you actually know, oh, that's the mistake that I made.
What do you want somebody or everybody that you write for, and teach, essentially, what do you want them to take away? What do you want them to say? Eric taught me how to enjoy my life, how to enjoy being happy as an entrepreneur.
Actually, happiness is, is someone else's domain.
Okay.
What I want is for people to look back on the work that they did and feel like it was worthwhile. Not because it led to some other outcome, not because it made them rich, but because the work itself was worth doing. And I think if you look at where startups are failing, they're failing because people are using them as a means to an end, and they're not actually making sure that the work that they're doing will be redeemed by some kind of, having changed the world in a positive way.
Well, that's very inspiring.
Well, thank you.
Speaking as an entrepreneur.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. That's what I try to keep in mind as much as I can.
Thank you, Eric. I've been speaking with Ries. He's the author of Startup Lessons Learned. I'm Bambi Francisco.